Good evening, everyone, and welcome. And as always, thank you so much for joining. I've followed the normal format of meeting everyone, but please do feel free to unmute yourselves if you wish to ask anything, or to use the chat function. Before I start on the new aspect of the Mitzvah of Hadlakas Neros Shabbos this week, and I hope this will be the last share on the topic. I just want to reiterate something that I mentioned last week, and about which there was some questioning afterwards. So I mentioned that the earliest time to light Neros Shabbos is Plug Hamincha. I'm not going to go into the technicalities of how Plug Hamincha is calculated, other than to mention that it's found on our shul calendar, as on many other shul calendars and Zmanim websites. So on our online calendar, we always mark the earliest candle lighting time and Plug HaMincha. And this week, for example, it is 7:34. And I mentioned that in extreme situations, or for example, for someone who lives alone and would be unable to start Shabbos with Kabbalah Shabbos in a shul as a result of the later candle lighting time, and therefore they would need to daven later and miss their shul's Kabbalah Shabbos, there's room to allow one to light some 20 minutes or so before Plug HaMincha, just in time to be able to get to go to shul. This isn't a general allowance, meaning it's not, normally one only is allowed to light at the earliest time listed for Hadlakas Neros Shabbos. All I meant to say is there's some flexibility in the situation of someone for whom that would mean that it's impossible for them to be in shul for Kabbalah Shabbos over summer. I want to move on today to discuss the halachas around one who is either not eating at home, perhaps not eating at home but sleeping at home, perhaps eating out a meal or sleeping and eating out, or the status of people who are perhaps flat sharing or dormitory sharing, such as singles who are staying in a shared flat, or people in a dormitory, whether it's Yeshiva or Sem and the like, or families who are staying together in hotels. So in the classic normal situation, where one is eating and sleeping at home, as we discussed, one lights in the dining room where one eats, and one should ensure that there are electric lights lit where needed. What happens, though, in a situation where it's not a classic situation, one isn't eating and sleeping at home, but one is going out for the Shabbos meal, where and when does one light? So the first thing to clarify is that, in essence, the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neros Shabbos really has two elements to it. The first is to do with the place, that there should be light in the place where one is eating and other places that are used on Friday night, where one is sleeping, as we discussed. And we explained the reasons behind this is in order to ensure that Shabbos is that Oneg Shabbos is fulfilled, and that one doesn't bang into the furniture, affecting Shalom Bayis and the like. In addition, however, as we discussed in the first week, there is a mitzvah on the person, a mitzvah on the individual to show covered Shabbos, honor of Shabbos, by making appropriate preparations in advance of Shabbos. And therefore, we have to engage in an act of lighting the Shabbos candle. So it's a mitzvah on the individual, not just to ensure that there is light, which is about the place, but to ensure that they light in honor of Shabbos. And this is why we light Shabbos candles, even though our rooms are well lit up with electric light. And if there was a candle already lit on the table that was lit too early, long before Plug HaMincha, not lit in honor of Shabbos, one would need to light it on Erev Shabbos after the correct time in honor of Shabbos, the covered Shabbos, by blowing out the candle and relighting it, so that one does an act of lighting. In the parlance of the Yeshiva world, this is referred to as a mitzvah, a din on the gavra, on the human being, and on the chefta, on the object. The chefta, the object, the place, needs to be a light. And in addition, the gavra, the human being, the individual, has to do an act of lighting. So there's the double mitzvah that's present. And if either one of these mitzvahs, if either one of these components is absent, one needs to light Hadlakas Neros Shabbos. If both of them are fulfilled, in other words, the act of lighting has occurred through someone doing an act of lighting on one's behalf, and the location, the room, is lit up, then one doesn't need to light Shabbos candles oneself, because they've already been lit on honor of Shabbos. The act of covered Shabbos has done. Now, the second element that was spoken about, which is connected to the person, that the person has an obligation to light, is fulfilled by one person in the household lighting. Now, traditionally, normally that's the wife or the mother who lights, and that's the reason why in our homes, the mother or the wife, the householder, the Baalas Habayis, the Baalat Habayit, lights the Shabbos candles, and she has done an act of lighting Shabbos candles, of covered Shabbos, on behalf of all members of the household and the family. And therefore, both components have been filled. The home is lit up, and in addition, the act of lighting the covered Shabbos has been done. Why traditionally the wife does it, we discussed in the first week, but one representative of the family can do it on behalf of everyone, and were the wife not to light, or there to be no lady of the house, then the balabais, the husband, the father, can light, or indeed any member of the household can do so. So one member of the household lights on behalf of everyone. And therefore, in the traditional, classic, easy scenario setup, where one is eating and sleeping at home, both elements are fulfilled. The home is a light with lights, and a person has done the act of covered Shabbos, of honor for Shabbos, by lighting the lights, and therefore the mitzvah is fulfilled. Who's included in this mitzvah? Well, the spouse, the children, because they're all members of the household. In addition, however, any guests who are eating at the Shabbos table, at the Friday night table, are also members of the household for the meal, and therefore are automatically included in the lighting without anything more being said. So if a married or single person is spending Shabbos with another family, then in terms of their personal obligation to light, they are part of the household, and therefore fulfill the obligation of lighting through, let's say, the hostess's lighting, or whichever member of the household does the lighting, and therefore they don't need to light. In fact, they fulfill it the same way as every other member of the household does. So just like the spouse and the children are included in the lighting, so too are any of the guests, if they are indeed staying in the home with that person. The the personal obligation is filled through the lighting of the hostess, and the home obligation is fulfilled also because they are part of that home. What happens if one is, so that's the classic situation, one's automatically included in the lighting of the hostess. Now, as a matter of minhag, when a lady is away from home for Shabbos and eating out of the home, for example, perhaps one's going to eat at one's parents' or in-laws or at friends, in principle, she could fulfill her hadlokas neos Shabbos with, or through rather, the lighting of the hostess. As we explained, they are all members of the household for this Shabbos or for this meal, and therefore it's sufficient for the hostess to light, and that will automatically fulfill their obligation. Nonetheless, the minhag is that married ladies have taken upon themselves the beautiful mitzvah of always lighting Shabbos candles, and therefore she has in mind to exclude herself from the lighting of the hostess, and thus not fulfill the mitzvah through the lady of the house, their hostess's lighting, even though technically they could have done so. And therefore, since they have excluded themselves from the mitzvah, they can now light their own candles, and indeed perhaps would be obligated to so do, and therefore light by themselves with a bracha. In a moment, I'm going to clarify or tweak this halacha, but just to summarize what we've said so far as core halacha is concerned, when one is a guest with someone else over Shabbos, we're not going to go for now, we'll get back to this, to a situation where one has one's own room, or one is sleeping elsewhere, perhaps in a hotel and just eating there. If one is a guest in someone's house over Shabbos, one becomes a temporary member of their household, and therefore are automatically included in the hostess's lighting, just like one's spouse or one's children are normally automatically included in the hostess, the mother, or the wife's lighting. Nonetheless, where the guests are married ladies who fulfill the mitzvah week after week in their own home, the minhag is that they choose not to fulfill the mitzvah through the hostess's lighting, but will engage in an act of lighting themselves. For men who are guests, since men traditionally don't fulfill the mitzvah week after week, therefore normally, as a matter of minhag, they don't exclude themselves from the lighting, and therefore they're quite happy to be yotza, to fulfill the mitzvah through the lighting of the hostess. So this is the two classic scenarios. Now we need to probe a little bit further this situation that we've discussed, where what will effectively happen is, because let's say the daughter or the daughter-in-law, married daughter and daughter-in-law, who's spending Shabbos with her parents or parents-in-law, is choosing to exclude herself from the lighting in order to light herself, what one effectively has now is two householders lighting in the same location. So two individuals are choosing to light in the same location. So how do we view this situation? They're choosing to light in the same location. Is this indeed possible? Is it possible for them to choose to light in the same location and therefore effectively have two people who are lighting in one home? So this is now a broader discussion. If you are choosing to light if you're choosing to be in a situation where two people are lighting in the same home, can they both light? Can they both make a bracha? So when would this situation occur? Whenever there are two householders who are lighting in the same location. Why would that occur? Whether lots of people in a hotel, where they have no connection with each other than they all wish to light in the dining room of the hotel, or in a situation, as I said, where someone is a guest. Normally a guest would be included in the hostess's lighting, but they choose not to be included in the hostess's lighting. In this situation, would they have to light, are they allowed to light themselves and make their own bracha? So this is a machlokus between Sephardi and Ashkenazi practice. The Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, who paskins in general for Sephardim, is of the belief that it doesn't make sense for two people to light in the same location. Since two people are lighting in the same location, there's no extra covered Shabbos caused, no extra honor to Shabbos caused by an additional light. The mitzvah is to ensure that the place is light, but the place is already light, and therefore how can the second person lighting light another set of Shabbat candles? However, the Ramah, who paskins for Ashkenazim, says no. The guest or the co-host or the parallel family who are in the same location can make their own bracha when they light the candles, because every extra candle adds additional light and additional honor for Shabbos. And this is how Ashkenazim paskin, and indeed many Sephardim also have adopted the Pesach of the Ramah, particularly in North Africa where there was Ashkenazi influence, and therefore they light with a bracha. So in brief, two families who spend Shabbos together, whether parallel families in a hotel where they've no connection with each other and each one would need to light themselves, or where one family is a guest with the other one, but the hostess is the guest is choosing to light themselves and doesn't wish to fulfill the mitzvah through the hostess. According to Ashkenazim, they can light and make a bracha. Both sets, the guest can also light and make a bracha. However, according to Sephardim, if they are lighting in the identical place, then they shouldn't both make a bracha. The first lady to light would make the bracha, and the second one can't because there's already a Shabbos light there in the room, and therefore the second one can't be lit with a bracha because there's already a light. There's already been a Shabbos candle, which is a light. In practice, many Sephardim evade this issue because our homes have many rooms, and certainly if the guest has their own room, they could choose to light there because it's a candle in a separate space. Similarly, one could light in the kitchen, another one could light in the dining room, one could light in the lounge. And therefore in homes where there's many rooms, even though the primary place, the normal place where we light Shabbos candles is in the dining room where we eat, nonetheless there's a mitzvah to have light elsewhere. And therefore in that situation, even for Sephardim, we would agree that since they're lighting in another room, they can light in that other room and make a bracha that is there. If their other room is really like a separate granny flat or a separate flat for guests, they need to make sure that they go in there to benefit from the light. And we're going to talk about that also shortly. There's no mitzvah achieved whatsoever to light in a room before Shabbos, then leave the room and only return to the room late at night after the meal when the candles have already gone out. Because in that case, I'm lighting somewhere where I have absolutely no benefit from them on Shabbos, in which case this is a lighting in vain, and making a bracha on this lighting would be a bracha levatala. So if one is lighting in one's own separate granny flat or whatever the case may be, one needs to make sure that one either stays and benefits from the light for a few minutes when it gets dark, one enjoys the light then, or that at some point one pops back to benefit from it, or that one lights long enough candles or lights with enough fuel that they will still be alight when they return back. So these are the halachas of parallel lighting. So just to summarize, when one person is a guest in the other person's home completely, they become like a member of the household and have no obligation to light. If they so choose, they can be included in the mitzvah of lighting. And the person includes them in the mitzvah of lighting in much the same way as always, all members of the family are included. If they wish to exclude themselves, they can, in which case we'll be in a situation of parallel lighting, where two families wish to light in the same home. And indeed, this happens in other situations, like when people are staying in a hotel. In fact, the minhag is to do this when the second family has a mother or wife to it. So whilst men don't choose to light, since this is a special mitzvah that ladies have adopted, they choose not to fulfill the mitzvah through the hostess, and then they want to light themselves. But then we get to a question, does parallel lighting make sense? There's already Shabbat candles. Does it make sense to light more Shabbat candles and make a bracha on this? The Shulchan Aruch says no. This is the view of some Sephardim. The Ramah, who paskins to Ashkenazim, says yes. This is how Ashkenazim and North African Sephardim paskin, that you can have a second lighting, because a second lighting adds to the joy of Shabbos. Finally, I mentioned that if they choose for Sephardim to light in a separate room or in their own little flat or the like, in that situation, they should ensure that they are benefiting from the lights and therefore remain by the lights until nightfall, or go back sometime during the meal, or have lit long enough lights that they will be alight after the meal so that they get benefit from them. So this is in the situation where one is fully hosted by someone, because in this scenario, one's part of the household and the mitzvah is fulfilled by the person who is lighting, and there's nothing more that needs to be done. Let's talk about situation number 2, which is where I'm being hosted by someone to eat, but I'm sleeping elsewhere. So in this situation, I need to ensure that the act of lighting is done for me, but that can be done by the hostess who is lighting on my behalf. But I also need to ensure that the place where I am is lit up, because as we said, the location also needs to be alight. Now, if I'm staying in someone's home, the presumption is that the room I'm staying in is still part of their home, and therefore would be included in the household lighting. But if I'm staying not in their home, for example, I'm renting a flat for myself or a hotel room for myself, and I'm just eating Friday night at someone's home, or I'm staying in my own home, but I'm eating out Friday night, whilst it is true that I can fulfill the mitzvah of lighting by being subsumed to the household where I'm eating and included in the hostess's lighting, that's with respect to my personal obligation to light. But the room or the home where I'm in, which is separate from their home, also needs to be alight. And therefore, in this situation, I need to ensure that the room where I am is alight. I don't need to ensure this by lighting Shabbat candles, because my personal obligation to light will be fulfilled by being part of the household of the place where I'm eating. But I need to ensure that the room is alight by ensuring there's appropriate electronic lighting in that room. So if I am eating out Friday night, my personal obligation is from the hostess. My location obligation is fulfilled by having electric lights on, and therefore, again, that is sufficient. Again, in terms of my personal obligation, I'm automatically included in the hostess's lighting. And I saw someone posted, should I ask the hostess's lighting to have me in mind when she lights? There's no particular need to do so, because I'm automatically included in her household. What happens if I'm eating alone in my hotel room on a Friday night? Then I would normally have a mitzvah to light, my personal obligation, because no one is lighting for me. And in addition, I need to ensure that the room is alight. Nonetheless, if I'm a permanent member of a household, for example, a married man who happens to be away from home over Shabbos, or a child or a young man, a young lady who lives at home and are always have their lighting mitzvah fulfilled through their mother. In both those cases, even though I'm away from home, eating somewhere else, nonetheless, my personal obligation can be fulfilled through the parent who is lighting on my behalf. So someone who is eating away from home and whose spouse is lighting for them, as long as the room in which they are found is has some light, that deals with the location issue, and the hostess is lighting for them, deals with the personal obligation to light. So this is situation number 2. Someone has posted to me a question. Does one need to be present when the hostess lights? The answer is no, one does not need to be present. In the same way as children or a spouse may often not be present when a hostess lights, one doesn't need to be present when the hostess lights. And the second question was, can one light at the hostess without a bracha? So for Ashkenazim, normally one wouldn't do this. Normally, if one wishes to light by oneself at the hostess, one would exclude themselves from their lighting and therefore light in their home with a bracha. And as I said, the minhag is only really for married ladies to do this, because since they take upon themselves the mitzvah to do so week after week, they would also do so when they are hosted out. For people who don't normally light week after week, themselves personally, if they're hosted and they're eating at someone else's house, they will just automatically be included in the lighting of their hostess. So these are the two situations. Finally, let's deal with a situation. Maybe I'll just pause in case there are any questions, because I'm aware that this is a little complex and there's a number of scenarios. And then I'll continue if anyone wants to ask, because a couple of things came through on the chat.
Rabbi, just clarify that.
Yes.
So if you're staying at home but eating out on Friday night, do you just not light candles? That feels weird.
If one is staying at home and eating out Friday night, for a single individual, a single male, for example, or single female, if they wish to do so, they can be included in the hostess's lighting and not light themselves, as long as their home will have lights that are alight. However, I want to emphasize again, the custom is for married ladies to exclude themselves from the hostess's lighting and therefore light themselves. And this is why you say it feels strange, because let's say you as a married lady eat out, the minhag is that you will not subsume yourself into your hostess's lighting, and therefore you will either light at home or light where you are eating, because you're choosing not to subsume yourself into the hostess's lighting. So for a married lady, the minhag is always to personally fulfill the mitzvah by lighting themselves. For anyone other than a married lady, since they anyway normally rely on their host to light, for example, they're relying on their mother or relying on their wife, therefore if they're eating out, they don't have an obligation to light themselves. They can rely on their hostess's lighting. Does that
yeah, nothing before. So for a married woman, is it better than to light at home or at your host?
Okay, so this is an excellent question. Where is it better to light for a married lady who is eating out? Now, there's a number of pros and cons in each model. If you are sleeping at home but eating out, if you're eating out completely, you're eating and sleeping out, then that becomes your new home of a Shabbos, and if you would light where you're eating and sleeping out. If you're sleeping at home but eating out, then in principle, it would be better to light at home before you leave, and that way your home has a light from the location, from your lighting at home, and where you eat has a light from the lighting of your hostess, and you therefore fulfill your personal obligation by lighting at home, and your location obligation by lighting at home and having a light where you eat. You also, through so doing, avoid the problem of lighting at the hostess, and according to the Shulchan Aruch, not really doing anything of significance because there's already light there. However, there are two scenarios, two issues to bear in mind in that situation. The first issue is if you light at home, let's say in a situation where we bring Shabbos in quite a lot before darkfall, like in summer where we light, let's say at 7:30, and nightfall may only be at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or even in winter where we perhaps only light, 3/4 of an hour before nightfall or an hour before nightfall. Nonetheless, if you're immediately going to leave home after lighting to walk to your where you're eating, and you will only return home late at night, you may end up not benefiting from your lights at all on Shabbos, in which case your lighting has been a wasted lighting, and the bracha you made on it was a bracha in vain, a bracha l'matzara. Why is it a wasted lighting? Because you lit the lights and immediately you left home, and you got no benefit from them, because you left home while it was still daylight, and by the time you got back late at night on Friday night, they had already gone out. So you can only light at home if you do one of two things. Either you're only going to leave your home to go to your hosts after nightfall, and therefore you enjoy your lights for a few minutes before you leave, or if they will still be alight by the time you get home. So if it's neither of those conditions are going to be fulfilled, far better to light at your hostess and just leave electric lights on at home, rather than lighting in a pointless manner in which you'll never benefit from the lights, because you're going to be out from nightfall till by the time you get home, the candles will already be out. So this is situation number one, where it would be better to light at your hostess's home. Situation number two, where there are pros and cons in lighting at home as opposed to your hostess's house, is if after you light, you need to drive to where you will be eating. So let's say you're eating a little further away from your house, and you wish to drive to the host, and then spend Friday night there, and then you'll walk back. So let's give a typical scenario. You light, then normally after you light, or just before you light, your husband goes off to shul and perhaps drives to shul where he parks, and maybe leaves the car there, and will pick it up on Motzi Shabbos or something of the sort. So he says, look, come with me in the car and I'll drop you off where we're eating, or you decide to drive yourself to where you're eating, and after Shabbos, you'll pick up the car. Now, normally speaking, by default, when you light, you accept Shabbos upon yourself, in which case you can't go in the car after lighting. And ideally speaking, you should accept Shabbos upon yourself when you light and make the bracha, as we discussed last week, because you're lighting Nerot Shabbos, you're lighting Shabbat candles. Since you're lighting Shabbos candles, it's lighting candles with which one ushers in Shabbos, and Shabbos automatically starts with the lighting. And therefore the poskim say that it is true that you can light and make a condition not to accept Shabbos upon yourself through the lighting, but this isn't ideal. And therefore, to light and make a condition that I'm not accepting Shabbos and then drive to location has some halachic disadvantages. On the other hand, waiting to light till you arrive at your hostess's house also has disadvantages. It can have disadvantages where you're only going to arrive there after the start of Shabbos, in which case that's a problem. Or it can have a disadvantage where you are, because of this issue that we've discussed, that in truth someone has already lit there. So there's halachic pros and cons, which aren't completely resolved. And therefore, if you are lighting and then planning to walk to your host, and you know that the lights will be alight when you get home, or because you've lit very long lights, or you'll benefit from them before nightfall, you can light at home and then walk to your hosts. If you're planning to drive there, or if you think the lights won't be alight when you come home, then probably better to light at your hosts. So in brief, just to directly answer your question in the simplest possible manner, when you are eating out, as far as core halacha is concerned, ensure your home is lit up and you can fulfill your mitzvah through your hostess's light. However, we don't do that. For married ladies, we fulfill the mitzvah by them lighting themselves the candles. Where should you light? Should you light in your home or in your hostess's home? If you're not planning to drive after lighting and you are sure you will be able to benefit from the lights because you'll stay at home till after nightfall or get back before they go out, then it is halachically advantageous to light in your home. If these conditions won't be fulfilled and you'll end up either driving afterwards or not benefiting from the light, then better to light at your hostess and avoid these problems. Someone now posted, does the same apply to davening Friday Mincha In theory, could you daven after lighting? That's an excellent question. And yes, the same thing would apply. We already mentioned last week that by accepting Shabbos upon oneself, by lighting the Shabbos candles, one is assumed to accept Shabbos upon oneself, after which it is halachically controversial, not clear, that it makes sense to daven mincha, because mincha is weekday mincha. How can I daven weekday mincha after lighting Shabbos candles? However, you are perfectly correct that if you make a condition not to accept Shabbos after lighting Shabbos candles, then one can still daven Friday mincha, because it makes sense to say daven Friday weekday mincha, since I didn't accept Shabbos through so doing. So this is the advice when eating out. These are the options when eating out. Similarly, if you are sleeping not in your own home, but in a hotel room or in a privately rented room and eating out, then the same halachas would apply, in which case it's theoretically better to light in the place where you are staying and only then go over to your hosts to eat the Friday night meal. However, if it's not practical because you can't leave the candles unattended, or because they may have gone out by the time you finish your meal, or because you're planning to drive to where you're eating, then it would make sense to just ensure there are lights in the room, and then you go to the hostess and light there, or include yourself in her lighting. So those are the most common scenarios. I want to talk about two more situations before I perhaps draw this to a close, or maybe four more situations I'll try and cover in the remaining few minutes. Situation number one is when you have a family at home, and let's say the parents aren't present. For example, siblings who are eating at home whilst their parents have gone away. In this case, one of them can light on behalf of the whole family. Why can that work? Because they're still one family. There's still a family who are eating at home. And therefore, in the same way as a mother can light on behalf of the whole family, in this situation, one of the siblings can light on behalf of the whole family. Similarly, if the mother is away from home and is for some reason unable to light, even though the minhag is that ladies always try to light for themselves, but for some reason she is unable to light, her husband can light at home on behalf of the whole family. The whole family will be included in the husband's lighting, and this will also include the lady herself. Her personal obligation is fulfilled via her husband's lighting on behalf of the whole family. However, she still has a responsibility to ensure that where she is lit up, and therefore she should ensure that there's appropriate electrical lighting in her room. So generally speaking, ladies have the minhag to, wherever they are, light personally for themselves. Nonetheless, if it is a situation where it is not practical for them to light for themselves, for example, they're staying in a hotel where they won't let them light in the room and they won't let them light in the dining room, or a lady's in hospital, or perhaps post childbirth, or something of the sort. In all these situations where she can't light for herself, then she needs to work through, how will I fulfill my personal obligation? The answer is through my spouse, my husband's lighting at home on behalf of the whole family. How would I fulfill the obligation that my location should be a light? I can use electrical lights just by leaving them on as is appropriate for this location. So this is the halacha of siblings, and this is the halacha of a lady being yoked through her husband's lighting on behalf of the whole family, in the same way as a man can be yoked through his wife's lighting on behalf of the whole family. And normally the minhag is for a lady to always light, but if for some reason, health or the like, she can't, there's no reason she can't be included in her husband's lighting. Another situation in which people are considered as one family is that of a dormitory scenario. For example, boys in Yeshiva or girls in Sem. In both those situations, we would consider them to be one family, like one family, and therefore one person can light on behalf of everyone and fulfill the mitzvah through so doing, because they are one family, and one member of the family can be motzi everyone. Now, there are situations where none of these solutions are ideal. And these are situations where you have people who are not a member of one household, but living together in one location. So this can be singles who are all renting rooms in a flat share, Or this could be a situation where one is a guest in someone's home and no one is lighting on behalf of one. So let's say one doesn't have a spouse who is lighting on behalf of one. And in addition, one isn't eating with a family and therefore one's not automatically included in the hostess's lighting. So what does one do in that situation? Again, let's work this through. I'm a guest in someone's home. No one is lighting for me on my behalf. So I have a personal obligation to light, and I can't be included in the hostess's lighting because I'm not eating with them. I'm perhaps eating by myself or the like. But how can I be included in the hostess's lighting? And the answer is only by becoming a partner with the hostess in the Shabbat candles that she's lighting. And this is the one situation where I either need to give a token sum of money to the person who's lighting, a putta, a 5p coin, and purchase a share in the Shabbat candles, or she can gift to me a share in the Shabbat candles, and I can take hold of them and lift them up, and through a kit fulfill a kinyan in these Shabbat candles. In brief, in a situation where I can't light myself, or I don't wish to light myself, and I'm not included in the hostess's lighting because I'm not a member of a household, I'm not eating with her, and I'm not included in another household's lighting, like a wife back home who's lighting for me. In that situation, how do I fulfill my personal obligation to light? In that situation, I need to ask the hostess to light on my behalf and have a share in the oil or candles by purchasing or being gifted a share and making a kinyan, an acquisition in the candles. So this is the situation that you may have met on other occasions where people mention, oh, give a token sum of money and buy a share. It's not necessary in most situations, because in most situations I'm automatically included in the hostess's lighting. It's only an absolute requirement or necessity when I'm not included in the lighting because I'm not a member of the household, and I'm in my own, I'm not therefore included in her lighting, but I wish her to light on my behalf, and therefore I need to appoint her to light for me and buy a share in the light. Similarly, in my scenario where you have many singles who are living together, they are all obligated in a personal obligation of lighting, and they are not members of one household. They're not eating together. They're not one family. Therefore, all of them are obligated in lighting. However, they can fulfill the mitzvah of lighting by again being partners in the flames, that in the candles that are being lit. How do they do that? By having someone buy from the shared apartment funds the Shabbat candles. So if they have a kitty in which they put funds and that's used for shared apartmental needs, like maybe toilet paper or bulbs, light bulbs or the like, or to pay the cleaner or whatever it is, they can use those funds to buy Shabbat candles, and everyone are partner, all the individuals in the flat are partners in these Shabbat candles, and therefore one lighting will help for them all. Alternatively, one person can buy from their own money the Shabbat candles, and everyone can give them a token sum and buy a share in the candles. Or if the person who purchased the candles is feeling generous, when he buys them, he can have in mind, I'm acquiring them on behalf of everyone, and if everyone is a partner in them, or he can gift them to everyone, and someone should do a kinyan, an acquisition of taking hold and lifting up the candles, and through that, everyone as shareholders are partners in these candles, and therefore the lighting will work on behalf of everyone in the flat. So to summarize, in a situation where I am part of the household, because I'm a spouse, because I'm a child, because I'm a sibling, because I'm literally part of the household, because I'm eating with someone, in all those cases, one can rely on the person lighting to do, I'm part of the household and I'm automatically included. Nonetheless, I need to ensure that my location is also a light. And the minhag is that married ladies choose not to be included, but light for themselves. In a situation where we are not members of one family, but we are parallel lighting, like in the hotel, like in the bachelor's pad, like in the a place where I'm staying with someone, but I'm not eating with them. In those cases, I need to partner in the lighting by ensuring I am a partner in the candles by making a token acquisition of a share of the candles. Someone has posted to me a question. Is an unmarried daughter allowed to light with her mother with a bracha, or better for her to be part of the family and say the bracha and part of the family bracha said by the mother? The answer is the daughter can choose to be included as part of the household and therefore not make her own lighting, but be included in the bracha of the mother, or she can choose to just light but still be included in the mother's lighting, or she can choose to exclude herself from the mother's lighting and make her own bracha. Now, from a strictly halachic point of view, it's really better for her to be included in the householder's lighting to avoid this issue of needless extra lighting, which, according to the Rabbi Yosef Cairo, doesn't add any dignity to Shabbos, but according to the Ramah, is still an honoring of Shabbos by having an extra light. Nonetheless, if she feels it's important for her to light herself, she wants to do her own mitzvah of lighting, or if there is a family minhag that single daughters light for themselves, as some families have such a minhag, she can choose to exclude herself from the householder, in this case her mother's lighting, and therefore make her own bracha on her own lighting. So this is an option she can choose to do. Okay, so we'll finish there, and I just again want to summarize the basic halachic principles, which are, one always needs to ask oneself, is my personal lighting taking place, and is my location lit up? As long as I can tick yes to both those questions, I don't need to light. If one of those questions are not fulfilled, then I will need to light. In general, location can be achieved just by having appropriate electric lighting on, but the personal obligation needs to be fulfilled by being part of a household. And as we discussed, people can choose to opt out of the household and light themselves. And indeed, that is the minhag for married ladies. I'm going to finish here because I think we've covered enough ground in terms of the halachas of Hadlokas Neros Shabbos. So I'm happy to hang around for questions if there are any. But equally, I'm open for nominations for our next topic to cover in our A to Z of mitzvahs. So please share if you have questions or suggestions of other topics that we can cover. And otherwise, I will wish you all a good Chodesh and a good evening. And thank you, as always, so much for joining.